joined.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting. This is hosted by the University of Malawi Actuarial Science Society. So we're having a chat with 3 female actuaries. We're getting to learn more about actuarial science. So come up with your questions and see the interesting part of the actuarial profession. So we're going to start off with introductions. I myself am Temwa Chimpepo. I'm assistant lecturer in actuarial science at the University of Malawi. So now our panelists will introduce themselves. We'll start off with Natai. Natai, please take the floor.
Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Natai. So I'm originally from Zimbabwe, but I left Zim to study at UCT. So I did my Bachelor of Business Science and Actuarial Science there. And then I joined the working world and decided to stay in South Africa. So I have been working for 8 years. I started off in consulting, did a couple of years there, and then I moved to one of the biggest insurance firms or companies here in South Africa called Discovery. And yeah, I'm working on IFRS 17 implementation there. Yeah, and then personally, I enjoy just social things. So I enjoy hiking, I enjoy reading, traveling, those type of things. I pretty much enjoy anything that has adventure in it or some sort of exploring. If it's not that, then it's just staying at home with a good book. Yeah, so one of my biggest lessons, which I want to start off in the introduction with, is one of the biggest lessons I learned from my journey was the benefit of balance. So balancing between studying and family, friends, and social life, because that has way more benefits than we think it does when we're first entering the actuarial world, because at that point, we just think it's all about being smart, okay? So the benefits of it for me was that it makes you a more well-rounded person. So that obviously has the benefits of health, you know, your mental well-being, your physical well-being, everything is impacted by you just being more well-rounded. You know, if you're more well-rounded, you have friends to talk to if you're struggling at school, you know, so that type of thing. And it also allows you to understand your studies much better, because when we're learning things in the actuarial space, it's very, very technical, when sometimes those things are actually very, very simple. So I'll give you an example. When I was, you know, doing my fellowship, I was doing an investments fellowship, and I found that speaking to my friend who is a chartered accountant working in a pensions environment helped me understand how simple some of the things I was reading was. And that all comes from, you know, getting out of the library and just having a chat with people that are different to you, or studying something that is, you know, very different to you. And also, you don't want to wake up one day, your exams are finished and you have no friends and you have nothing to do. So you want to build that life starting from an early stage of, you know, having a life to go back to after the actuarial journey is done. Yeah, so, and also job hunting. If you have people skills, it just makes it easier for you when you're now job hunting, because if you're just trying to sell your marks only, it becomes way more difficult because everyone around you is smart. Everyone in the room has all the same marks that you have. So it helps to have a more well-rounded personality. So yeah, my name is Natai and that's me.
Thank you, Natai. That was quite interesting. I guess it's going to be an adventure in the actuarial world with you. Yeah, so thank you so much. At this point in time, Kutsai, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Kutsai. My name is Kutsai Mtebule from Malim Shininga. Yeah, so I've had quite an interesting actuarial journey. So I'm also originally from Zimbabwe. I came to South Africa many moons ago when I was 19. And I started at University of Pretoria. From there, I also like got employed here. So I stayed here, and I think there were also more opportunities to develop and grow and do different kinds of work. So initially I worked for a consultance firm, and at some point I even worked for an IT company. I think that just shows like the variety of the kind of work that we do, and that in the end, sometimes it's just about your way of thinking and about the skills that you get from your studies, and what you learn, like how to think and how to apply the studies, and you can apply it really in different kinds of fields. Then I've also worked for a life insurance company, and now I'm currently in consultants. So what I found, I took quite a scenic route in my studies. What that means, it took a long time. So what I found when I was studying, for me, so I got married and I had kids, or I still have kids, 2 kids, when I was still studying. So what worked for me is in the different seasons of your life is to learn to prioritize while maintaining the balance that Natai spoke about, but to just prioritize and know, like, okay, priority and consistency, and to also have a good support system. Like I mentioned, I'm married. I have a very amazing partner. Like, so he knows when I'm studying, or when I was studying, then, I know I don't have to worry so much about the kids, or if people want to visit us at home, then I know he's going to block them and tell them, please don't come. He will make up an excuse, and I don't have to worry about the kids. He's going to look after them. So I think that's very important, just generally in life, to have your priorities and to just be consistent, because there are times when you're not going to be able maybe to study as much as you want every day, because life does happen. So having that consistency and having started early, and be consistently studying, and having like a system, like prioritizing your things, I think that helps. And just knowing you've got like a whole backup system and strong foundation and support system of people to fall back on, or people who hold you up, I think that really helps. Yeah. And and outside of all of that, it's not just about work. I also like quite a lot of things. I read a lot. I love gym. So like going out, hiking, friends, food. Yeah, lots of food. Yeah, thanks. Karen, you can.
Cool, thanks.
Go
Thanks,
ahead, Karen.
Kudzai. All right, thanks, Temwa. Thanks, Kudzai. Thanks, Nasai as well. Really excited to be here. So my name is Karen Muyengwa, and I am also from Zimbabwe, but based in South Africa. I came to South Africa 2012 to start my university learning at University of Witwatersrand, which is in Johannesburg. It's one of the, I guess, universities that offer actuarial science in South Africa, and did 4 years there and 2 honors. Afterwards, I firstly worked at Hollard Insurance Company, which is a corporate environment, and they sell lots of variety of insurance products. And the team I was in essentially is a short-term insurance team. I've always loved to be in the short-term insurance space. Afterwards, I wanted the exposure to different types of things. So then I joined Deloitte, which is a consulting company where we do work for a number of our clients, again in the short-term team. We would do everything that is general insurance, so everything non-life. Afterwards, well, I did like 2.5 years there and learned a lot of variety of things. And I just wanted another different, I suppose, exposure. And then currently in my current role, I'm in Old Mutual Insure, where I'm in the second line team, where we review actuarial work that the first line teams would have done across pricing, capital, reserving, or everything, general insurance, anything that needs a second opinion, it would come through to us. What has been key on my journey, I think it's the people. I love people. I love having teams around me. Whether it was in university, I remember not doing things alone. I mean, there's definitely value in, attempting tutorials or assignments or questions in a textbook on your own. but then you shouldn't take too long. Don't spend weeks and weeks just struggling alone. I had a very good friends of mine where we used to meet and discuss. I could explain a certain topic where I'm strong at, and they would explain a certain topic where they're strong at. So we always bounce ideas off each other. And that support system has been really useful for me, even when we started working. And when you're trying to balance work and study, that support system was very, very came in handy, because we're working at different companies and get different exposure. And that support was really, really, really amazing. The one other thing to note is the actuarial community is very small. And I can imagine even in Malawi, it's even smaller. Like, who's qualified, who's working towards being qualified, who's working where. You probably your lecturers, I know it's still a growing profession in Malawi, but essentially the team in your class, if you look around, these are the guys you're going to work with. You might not work with them at your first job, but you work with them maybe at your third or second job, or you want a recommendation from them when you're moving jobs. So for me, it's, those relationships start now. They start at university. There are a number of people, even where I am now, I moved because I had my friends here, so it's a very small community. It's a very small world to know who's who in the market. So it's important to network. It's important to gain those relationships now. I suppose technical work can always be taught, but having those people skills are quite essential. It's not just, us being mathematical calculators in a way. We are more than that. So I think that people side is super key. But yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell, in a way. Cool.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you,
Cool.
Karen, Natsai, and Kutsai. That was really amazing. I've learned a lot about the Actuarial world already, and I can expect that there is so much more fun that we're going to have in this meeting. So I hope everyone else has their pens and papers to write, to take notes, and make sure that they grasp every single thing that the panelists are going to share about their journeys and everything else they have been through as they got to this point of being qualified actuaries. So at this point in time, I'm going to hand over to Karen. We're going to have a discussion of some of the questions, but feel free to post your questions in the chat, and we're going to get to that at a certain point in the meeting. Karen.
Thank you, Tenwa. I appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get the help of Carla, who's also going to essentially put up the poll on some of the questions we have. So I'm just going to put my screen in presentation mode, and then I'm going to share now. Just give me 1 second. Let me know when you guys can see it. You're probably going to see the faces of people. Oh, yeah, just the screen. I hope you can just see the screen. So the first question we put forward, we're just all thinking and trying to brainstorm what will be key for you guys, what will be asking. But like what Miss Temwa has already mentioned, put any other questions that come to mind in the chat, and we'll attend to them after we go through this first 6 questions. So the first question to the panel is just around, the money question. Everybody wants to know, are you going to make money? If you're an actuary, you're going to be rich. What can you actually afford in your first year of working? So I think we've put up some few sort of options here. Just want to see. Yes. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I want to put up the answers. For some reason, when I press next, that didn't work out so well. So essentially, as you can see from the screenshot, yeah, we just want you guys to get a sense, do actuaries really make money? And I suppose how much money? What are your expectations? What have you heard? I'm seeing some answers coming through, but we only have 6 responses now. Ooh, 50-50 between high and medium. No one thinks they're gonna get a low lifestyle. Interesting. I see the poll has ended. And just a little bit more people feel that they're going to get it allows for a high lifestyle followed by medium lifestyle. Natsai, do you want to speak to your opinion or your angle?
I think, in my opinion, at the beginning, we make a lot of money. So high, medium, low was just for us to have a gauge of, based on your personal experience, what do you think is going to happen? But it makes more sense to do it on a comparative basis. So when we compare to other graduates that leave the industry, so for example, when we compare to the accountants that are in training, we definitely make more money. It's not enough to buy any of those items on the screen, but it's definitely way more money than an average grad. But what I've found is, how it changes when you go higher up the ladder, or as you progress more, it becomes more than just your qualification. It's just like with anything. If you look at some of the richest people, some of them never even studied, some of them studied sociology, some of them studied different things. When you want to change your lifestyle from average, it becomes more about other things than just what you studied. But I personally think, compared to other graduates, I mean, you guys are doing economics, ceteris paribus, if we keep everything else the same, we definitely make more money than the average person. That's my opinion. Do you guys agree, Kudzi and Karen?
Yeah, Kudzi.
So I find this very interesting, because I think sometimes like what Natsai says, everything is relative, right? I think you have to think of things in relativity. Nothing is like always, certain. Also, it depends. What do you call high life? What do you call medium for different people? So I'll give you an example. When I was still in high school, actually, somebody told me, no, actuaries make a lot of money in your first month. You can buy a car. And I was just like, oh, wow, okay. And then a house by the end of the year. No, that was really exaggerating. So basically, how much money you... Okay. So everything, so obviously compared to other grads, you will make more money, but it depends, because the exemptions that you get at university. So the higher exemptions you have, the more likely, because companies are different, the more likely your salary is to be a bit higher, So if you're going to the same company, a person with 3 exemptions will get lower than, say, a person with 6 exemptions. But once you start working, one of the best way, the easiest in quotes way of making money is to just pass your board exams, because the more exams you pass, the more increases you get. So yeah. So don't expect to buy a Bentley in your first year.
Yeah, and I think just to manage some of the expectations that were not managed for us, it's just the degree is very strong, and what it does is, open the doors for you. So you need to open your mind, see how you actually utilize it, because it gets your foot in the door. It doesn't automatically guarantee that once your degree certificate is signed, you're now a rich billionaire. All it does is guarantee that you're set up to do pretty much anything that you want to do. Like there's very few, obviously doctor, but especially in the financial services industry, there's very few things that an actuary who has been trained cannot do. It might just be the people you're going to are not fully understanding the skills you possess. But other than that, you probably possess the skills to work side by side with an accountant, work side by side with a finance person, work side by side with an economist. So instead of like focusing on just the money, which is good compared to others, there's more that it offers you to be able to really achieve the goals that you have.
Yeah, that's true. And also once you start working, it's not just about exams, it's just about the work. Those people skills that Karen was talking about then come to play as well. How are you seeking opportunities to actually develop yourself? So there's like 15 board exams before you become a fellow. And, it's a different journey for everyone. But the exams are important, but also how you actually do at work is important. How you relate to other people is important. How you seek developmental opportunities is important. So a lot counts, but the degree itself is very strong. You don't even just need to go into traditional actuarial work. You can go work in investments. You can go work anywhere, really, basically.
Yeah.
It's a strong, yeah.
Yeah, I would even add the doors it opens even globally. Like, I think it's a well-regarded qualification, and if I wanted, I would go and work in the UK or Bermuda or the US. That's, I suppose, for me, the other powerful angle of it. But somebody did say, like, if you want to be like filthy rich, start a business. You know, you're not gonna be like Bill Gates, but you'll be comfortable. Should be able to buy your groceries or a phone you want. And it's, I guess, it's also how you save money or invest your money. But you should at least be, you know, have your basic needs hopefully met. And I suppose it's also because of how there is the demand. So hence, for demand for such skills is needed across the board in any areas of the industries. So that definitely, I guess, contributes to why the remuneration is a lot better compared to other fields. But it's not easy to get there. How do I put this? You have to work towards it. The exams are not a breeze. So it's a process, you know. The more you work hard, the more you get your exams, the more you can expect to be remunerated. And also the more value you bring to the business, the better your remuneration, or even maybe your bonuses and things like that. Cool. I think we can move on to the next question. Cool. And we can get our second poll up. So our next question is asking, what does an actuary look like? And we have a few options here. Just gonna go on the next one. So A, as you can see, is someone who's always sitting at a computer. B, we can see, you know, somebody golfing, or like, is it always like a party, you know, people relaxing and having fun in the hood. And we've put in a few options there, you know, teamwork, networking, presentation, and you can choose as many options as you feel fit. Yeah. What does an actuary look like? When you think of an actuary, what comes to mind to you? And you can see, I think,
quite interested to see in the chat, in
Yeah.
line with ABC. What are people thinking? So if you thinking actually before yourself, obviously, but just in terms of who do you expect to see in the office with you? Is it A, B, or C?
yeah. You can comment in the chats, guys. We're waiting to see your feedback there, please. I'm interested. I'm seeing one person say golfing. The one winning is computer skills.
I'm going to end the poll now and share the results.
Happy. Thank you, Carla. So the winning answer here is computer skills, followed by presentation skills and teamwork. Those are next to neck. And then networking, and I want to say last but not least, golfing skills. This is an interesting one. Should we start with you, Kuzi, your comments?
Okay, yeah. So look, I think that there's a saying that I love that says, an actuary that's just an actuary is not an actuary.
Yeah.
So, you know, computer skills, obviously that's important. Look, technical things can always be taught. And once you've learned something, you can improve on it. But once you know it, and what's left is to improve on it. But an actuary really, especially modern day, I think olden day actually people expected this, you know, like a nerdy type of person at the corner in a very dark room, like not talking to anyone, just punching numbers and calculating things. But that's not who an actuary actually is, especially in the modern day. If you want to actually grow in your career, everything is important. Okay, maybe it's not golf, but what do you do to relate to people? You know, you'll find people go cycling, some people play golf, some people take walks. There's always something that interests you that interests another person, something that helps you just interrelate. So all the skills are necessary. It's obviously your technical skills is what gets you hired, and that's very important. That's what your company bills for. That's what gets the company going. But also your developmental skills will need you to network, will need you to, and you need to have fun, because there will be like lots of social settings. So just, be yourself.
Yeah.
If you come to our office, you'll find all sorts of people, all different kinds of peoples. You find the guy with multiple piercings and tattoos. You find the guy with the afro, the girl with the dreadlocks, the anything, everything. So just, firstly be yourself, but also develop yourself. It's good to be well-rounded. It's good to network, and it's good to develop your skills. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
it's quite useful to use your varsity time. I mean, this is the only time you'll ever have, months off when you're on holiday, to expose yourself to as much as possible, because by exposing yourself to as much as possible, you know all the things that are out there and understanding all the skills that are important, so that, by the time you enter the workplace, you know everything, but you also know your niche, because that's one thing that I found to be most important. Don't try to, compete with your colleagues on a coding level or computer skills level, when your natural, obviously work on it, but your natural niche might be talking to people or forming relationships. So just be aware of there's space for everyone, right? We live in a woke world, in a modern world. There's space for everyone to be who they want to be or what they want to be. If you feel like, listen, my skill is people skills, having that awareness allows you to put yourself in spaces where that sort of skill is valued. You'll know that, listen, I need to be in consulting, because if I don't know coding, I don't know much about the tech, I don't enjoy it, then putting yourself in a world that requires that is not really, obviously first job, you might have to settle for whatever, unfortunately, but going forward, you have way more choice in being able to say, this is my skill and I'm going to maximize on it. But for you to be able to do that, you need to understand that all of these skills are important, teamwork.
Yeah. Yeah, I would even add, I mean, there are people who get paid well because they can negotiate well. So computer skill, yes, you know the numbers, but being able to communicate them well, to convince others into making good decisions is also paramount. I mean, it's one thing to have all the numbers and nobody understands what you're talking about. I mean, we don't work in silos as actuaries. We should be able to convince business to say, okay, go with that transaction versus that transaction because of the profits you're gonna get and the minimal risk that it has or whatever, So there are all these risk measures and all these numbers we do calculate to help us make better decisions, data-based decisions, risk-based decisions. And to be able to communicate that is really, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. This was an interesting one. So moving on to our next question. I'll ask Carla to put on the next question whilst I move on to it. Cool. So the next question is around studies. So how many years does it actually take to qualify as an actuary? How many years does it take to qualify? And with a few options here. Does it take 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years? How many years does it take to qualify as an actuary?
Yo, we've got lots of this.
We're having an equal spread, hey?
But 3 seems to, like, no one wants to be bold and take 3 years.
I can see that.
Being prudent.
Yeah.
Eh?
Guys, vote. I guess 5 more seconds, then we can end the poll. Okay, cool. I think we can end the poll now. And it looks like 10 years is 38% and 7 years, 35%, and then an equal similar portion between 3 and 15. I can take this one first, and then Nathan, because I guess can add. So I guess for me, it depends on when do you actually measure from, right? Generally, we always count when you start your university degree. So once you're just coming out of varsity, and I'm not sure on the African continent which university offers all subjects, but even then, you still need 3 years of work experience to be able to qualify as an actuary. So on average, people tend to do 3 years of bachelor year degree and an additional year for honors. And then you're still required to do 3 years of work experience and what we call work-based learning or normative skills, where you actually learn technical skills at work. So generally, the minimum is actually 7 years that you can take to qualify to call yourself an qualified actuary. You need to have finished all your exams, done the work-based learning. There are a number of workshops and other mini exams, like some multiple choice or some modeling exams that you take a whole day to answer, and then submitting all of that and having that all signed off. So generally the minimum, that will be about 7 years. But then it can take longer because writing exams can take some time, especially if your university degree doesn't offer any exemptions. It means when you're starting to work, you're having to go through all those 15 exams whilst you're working. And hence it can take you 10 years or sometimes 15 years. Yeah, time. It can take a little bit longer.
I was just
yeah.
laughing because somebody commented and said that's quite a lot.
But
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean, they're
seeing
already
that.
at university, most of them, yeah. So at least like post-university, it can be a conversation of like, how do you lower? I don't know if you ladies agree, but I feel like sometimes we're stuck on the years that the people before us took. And we need to remember that they did not have as much support as we did.
Yeah, that's true.
We need to create an environment where, it's taking less time for people to qualify, because I mean, the exams are important. You want them, you want to qualify, but you want to finish them quick so you can just start doing the actual interesting and fruitful stuff. So I feel like, post degree, it's not phenomenal for people to take 3 years anymore. I think, if you do the right things, it can easily be 3 years.
Yeah.
So I found there's like quite a number of people. Look, qualifying will take how long it takes. It will take however long it takes. It's very different for different people, but there are lots of factors that what I wish I had known. For example, because I told you guys I took quite a scenic route to qualifying. Is, for example, it's important to know what companies to work for. So do your research, work for a company that actually values exams and qualifications, because some places will be like, no, it's more work. Maybe you'll find yourself having to cancel exams. Maybe you'll find yourself not having enough exam support, or so it's very important to do your research on the companies that actually support actuarial exams. So in a lot of companies where actuaries work, you will get your study leave days, they will pay for your exams and all that kind of support. And there might be actually tutors and mentors that help you up. So that's very important where you will work, because that's a very big factor. But also it's sometimes life happens, like like I said, I had my kids when I was still writing exams before I fully qualified. So, like during the time before I gave birth for my children, there was no way I could write. For me, it wasn't something. So then I could pose. But also the thing is, it's not like during the exam time, it's not like you're not earning an income. Some people choose to develop their careers more. Some people choose to focus on exams. So you might find somebody reaches like managerial levels, but they're still writing the exams. It becomes more difficult because now you've got more responsibilities. That's what I experienced anyway. But also some people will just focus more on exams and then grow their career afterwards, which end up sometimes, being actually maybe a faster route or a better route. But people are different. But yeah, like Natai says, things don't have to be difficult. You have so many resources. Our community across the world even is small, and there's just so much support also. So I think it's just a matter of knowing where to get that support, but it's there. So get the right support, get the right resources. I think you have more support and more resources than us and older people. So it doesn't really have to take so long. Some ASA, I know ASA in the UK will allow you based on your maths and what maths you've done at university to join already, especially if they recognize your university. And some exams you can start while you're at university, but it depends also because you also have university work. But once you start working and if you have the support and resources, it doesn't have to be a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and
I
just
mean,
to add to your previous point, like, I think it's very important to, like, you know, state that it's important to stop now. Like, at this point, you should no longer think of exams as a measure of intelligence, because I think at this point, you're all intelligent, you all know what you're doing, but it's no longer a measure of just intelligence.
Yeah.
It's now a measure of, like, a lot of things that you need to do to just make sure you're on, you know, the right track. And I think one of the things that I remember from my study days is, like, you need to be wiser, because you do need to have support. It's much easier if you have support, but you also need to be wiser about who you study with, because I've always felt like there's two different personalities when it comes to studying, especially with the later subjects. There's, you know, the people that are really good at regurgitating facts, which is also required, and there's people that are good at thinking out of the box. And you need to make sure that if you're one, your study partner is the other. So if you're both people who know how to study, really know how to repeat what's in the notes, and you study together, that's a recipe for, because you'll both just get the 50% that requires you to. So you need to make sure you value what the other person is bringing to the table. You know, I know, like, I remember for me, any exam, if it was a question that a person who has not studied could figure out, that was my, you know, that was. Whereas if it was like a question about, it's in the notes on page, in as much as I would have read the notes, it was very, like, it's not my strength to literally be like, the notes say, nah. But, you know, so I made sure that the people I studied with would literally be like, no, Nats, you're now going on a tangent. It's actually on page 5.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I just want to add, I suppose, given that we are speaking more from our South African sort of experience, and I'm fully aware Malawi is still a developing profession. And I mean, I do know these exams do come at a cost. So it's one of those things, if the companies are not covering it, it can be a challenge to be paying for that, for those things, for the exams on your own. But it's definitely a worthwhile journey. And I think there is some sponsorship that comes through the institutes in the UK, or even ASA, to get some subsidized sort of exams, I think, in terms of exam fees. But there is definitely some support, I think, even through ActEd, where you can order your notes from. I've seen sites where people post questions and you can get feedback on that. But I think the one thing I really like about actuarial science is that even without any exam, even just having the actuarial degree, you can start work. You can start work, you can start developing, like Kuzi was saying, you can be a manager without being qualified. So it is a journey. It is a dream to be qualified. And I mean, we're all grateful to be qualified, but it's a very, we learn a lot on the journey about yourself, about the studies. It's more about when you're qualified, you are able to sign off on certain things. It gives you certain, I guess, you know, there's some requirements that require when you're signing off on items, there's some things that only require a qualified actuary, but doesn't mean you know, everybody has to be qualified to actually start work. Cool. I think let's move on to our next question, if that's okay. Question number 4. Oh, we had another point here. You're great. Don't compare yourself to others, you know, be on your journey. You know, I suppose generally if you're focusing on studies so much, you're probably sacrificing something else, and we have finite time. So don't compare yourself, and just follow your own journey. Cool. Next question.
There's a question, and I think it's really relevant to what we're talking about. So somebody just asked a quick question about the exams. Sorry, if you can just check in the chat. So for a person, it's Techno Spark.
Yes.
name or her government name. For a
It's a cool name.
Number 5. There's number 1 now.
Yeah. For a person who already has a maths degree, how do you upgrade to actuarial science? Just like, you know, say a master.
Okay, so like, yeah, some people study, like a lot of actuaries actually didn't even study actuarial science. So
Yeah.
that's why, I mean, if you're studying actuarial science, like, you know, or if you're not, so that's, you might not be able to get, say, exemptions at university. And then once you start working, if you want to be an actuary, if you have something mathematical, then you can actually join ASA or IFOA, like that's the UK one, and you can write exams with them. You don't need an actuarial degree necessarily to even, so with a maths degree, with a stats, when I even know of an engineer, you know, who was now starting to come over to actual, like he's an engineer, and now he's writing actuarial exams to become an actuary. So you don't necessarily need, you don't need an actuarial degree. And if you do have a maths degree, you can actually register with an actuarial body and you can start writing your exams.
Start
Look,
writing
exams are, yeah, exams are, like we were talking, like it's a long journey, but it's good to remember you will be earning an income while writing these exams.
And
so,
I remember when I was working in the for a Deloitte, but based here, but for UK, most of the people in the UK don't actually do actuarial degrees. They don't. You can find somebody who comes with an astronomy degree, starting the exam,
physics,
acing it. And this is now my personal opinion. I feel like somebody who is coming from a strong degree as well, but you know, going into a different space, not just the actuarial space, brings a different way of thinking, which is why most organizations which are financial services now hire engineers, or you know, if you can and you have a good way of thinking, which the actuarial degree gives you, you can literally work anyway. And if you're working anyway, you're going to be bringing a different way of thinking to the other people in the room that are pretty much, you know, thinking the same way.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And there's another question, Karen.
Yeah.
So, which actuarial body is better for actuarial profession exams in terms of opportunity, from Joaz? I hope I'm not mispronouncing that.
Yes.
Do you want to take it?
Cost opportunities. I know, okay, I'll speak from South Africa. I know I'm just thinking from the guys working in SA who studied here, most of our companies would promote the professional body in the country. But I do know some people would still choose institutes or faculties, maybe because of how some of the subjects are set up, like the general insurance principal subject is split into reserving and pricing, and that can be very attractive to them. I'm actually not so sure about cost between the UK and SA. I think they might be slightly close to each other, but because of, you know, currency exchange rates, maybe for us the rand is probably cheaper and more stable over time than paying pounds. Yeah,
there's probably that benefit which is worth researching if Malawi gets. So if you're getting the discounted rate, ASA doesn't
from
offer
the UK.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would also add some of the ASA exams also, they have adopted them to be around South African context. So if you are writing some of the, not all of them, but some of the higher exams, they would be asking about South African legislation. Whereas if you're writing a UK fellowship, it'll be asking about the UK regulatory environment. So that's just also something to consider. But yeah, I think you're right. Institute probably gives a lot more subsidies for certain African countries.
And I think, but if you are, sorry, Kutsi.
Yeah, no, I wanted to say also, but in terms of opportunity, I don't think there is a difference. Like, I know South African actuaries right now are like in so much demand in Netherlands, Bermuda, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, UK. It's equally recognized. So in terms of opportunity, I don't think there's a difference. But yeah, in terms of costs, I think Malawi would probably benefit from the discounted UK rate.
But I also think it's important to consider when you would like to move, because I know after qualifying, it's like it's the same. It's the same level. It's the same everything. It's easy to move. But I don't have the facts on this one because I just did ASA all the way. But it's worth sort of researching if you have a specific country that you want to go to, what their rules are around that. So that's where I would think that maybe the institute might have a winning hand, because it's definitely it's much easier.
It's older.
Write exams to do, because it's about the writing exams aspect, in the institute, you're writing through the institute, it's just easier to write from many different locations. Whereas ASA would be easy to write if I'm in Bermuda or something.
Yeah, that's true.
But at the end, when you qualified, it's all the same.
Yeah.
And there was a person who had their hand up.
Yes,
Yes,
there was
it was
Philip
Philip.
with a hand up for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Philip,
do you want to share your question? You can unmute yourself. I don't know if they're still there.
Okay.
I think we lost them. There is another question in the chat we haven't actually answered. Oh, there's another one from Joes. Yeah. I hope you are saying your name right. For Actuarial Society of South Africa, so for ASA, how many papers are there for someone to achieve fellowship level in actuarial profession? So I think that's the 15, right? Yeah. I think maybe let me put it differently. There is 13 written exams where when you sit, you're actually sitting for 3 hours writing them. Then there's other 3 courses that you take, and you write like a multiple choice question, which can be like 30 minutes or 20 minutes. And the other one is a modeling. The one I was talking about now is around business and legal on awareness. Then there's another one on modeling, where you actually do a workshop on modeling skills, like you Excel, you're given a scenario, you model it, you write an audit trail for your model, then you write a project summary in Word explaining what was the project about, what were the results, what are the next steps. And then there's another one called general practice module, where you're reading about the legal, again, I think around the legal environment of South Africa and other industries. And it's another 20 mark multiple choice question. So we usually add those 2 together and say 15, because those are the sort of the exams or items that you would write under exam conditions, in a way. I hope that answers your question.
And then there's the professional, there's then professionalism courses as well, plus your work-based skills. So as you're working, you have to sort of prove that you're gaining how to, to add value and functional in a workplace. So before you qualify, you also have to take stock of the learnings you're doing, and then you would be able to sort of show that these are the kind of skills that you're learning in your work environment. Yeah.
And I think it's quite important to be smart here, because my understanding is, you don't get as many exemptions through the Malawi University. But it's important to be smart now when preparing, for your exams. A lot of times people do them in chronological order. And again, that's what ends up taking 15 years, because you leave the one that you think is easy for last, but it's not easy for you. And then you end up doing it, over many years. So it's important to literally just, group your exams together in a way that shortens your academic journey by, for example, grouping the ones that are the same together so you can study them together. Or literally saying, okay, this is a hard one and an easy one. I'm going to do a hard and an easy paper every session, and things like that on your journey. So it's not, and like as big as it sounds, if you literally just make the right decisions, it's not going to be each year I'm writing an exam and, it's going to take me 15 years. It could literally finish quite quickly, just because they're smart about how they group things together. And again, this comes to the networking element, where you speak to people that have been through the journey before, and they can tell you that, hey, listen, communications, just start doing that now. You don't need much time, but some people have taken 10 years to qualify just because of communications. So
I agree.
It's definitely achievable in a shorter space of time.
Yeah. And I think even doing the degree is super useful. Yes, you may not get exemptions, but you know, your statistics and your maths, when you're just writing the exam, it's like you've already done the content, you've been tested on it. So just revising that a little bit and taking the, you know, doing past exam papers, can't stress enough, do past exam papers. And then hopefully you can get some of those early on exams quickly.
And when you start your journey, it's also important, don't go in blindly. I think this is like, just this talk alone is a good thing to just have an idea. But I know like now it's still developing in Malawi, but also I'm sure even in the South African community, people will be able to find mentors and people that are willing to support. So just, you know, like put yourself up. If you need that kind of support, reach out, and then, you know, we can help. There's always somebody who can help. And then when you start this journey, you sort of have a holding hand, and you're not just going in blindly, and you know, you sort of know where you're going.
Cool. Should we take on the next question from Kayuni? How well does actuarial sciences give a room to students to become entrepreneurs? To students to become entrepreneurs?
Adrian, go.
Yes.
So Natai works at Discovery. And Discovery is a very big company, and I think it's not just in South Africa now. I think you guys have like a whole just about, you know, in a lot of places. And Discovery was started by Adrian Go, who's an actuary. There was another name I was thinking of. But listen, I think some people might feel, but I think that's like older generation, where people felt like, you know, actuaries are sort of risk averse. But I think that also there's a lot of things that count and you know, come to factor when you you know, it's just the kind of person that you are. I think actuarial science teaches us to think broadly. It teaches us to consider like a lot of things. We're analytical, but not analytical as in just numbers, but analytical even in life and in life situations. So I think there's really the way of thinking that we taught, I think is amazing. And you can really just, like we said, we can do anything if it's got to do with financial. So I think there is support to be entrepreneurial. There's a lot of actuarial people that I know that definitely have like other businesses on the side that are not necessarily actuarial, but where their actuarial skills come to play. I mean, we have somebody we know with a chicken farm, for example.
Yeah.
So that's not actuarial, but actuarial skills in how to run that kind of business. What risk factors to consider and things like that would definitely count. So I think there is definitely support and structure for entrepreneurial development.
But I think, you know, I feel like as a profession, there is room for those skills to be developed at an academic level. But on a personal level, I agree with you, Kudzi, that you can be anything, you can achieve it. But I feel as a profession, we do need to push that a bit more, you know, to give that link between your academic and because, you know, it's not necessarily all CAs that are naturally entrepreneurial. I feel like there's training, you know, makes them
on that aspect.
And gives them that. So we're used to being, you know, the smartest person in a room. And sometimes even at a company, because it's somewhat late at a company, that can restrict you because you become that SME in that very technical thing. And then you get stuck in role. And then, you know, you wonder why that is when you're smart enough to go to higher levels. But I do think there's
other things
for our profession to encourage it.
It also could be people are comfortable. I mean, we did mention that the salary is quite comfortable. So, so you like, you know.
Like, why should I?
Why should I go? There's room. I suppose we actually have the opportunity to do more projects, because if you can save a little bit, you can attempt to put your money into other things. But I think I do agree that most of our learning is around managing risk. Like I always say I'm very risk averse myself. Like the fact that I know about equities and the fact that assets can just fall any day, I'm even nervous investing. So we definitely need to be the fact that we do know how to manage risk should enable us to take more risks, smartly. So yeah, and the fact
But
that
I
we
think,
can, yeah.
sorry,
I just wanted to add the fact that we've got skills to, like, doing business plans and like projecting into the future, thinking about inflation, thinking about all the costs. We are taught to think widely about all the things that could happen and how we can hedge those risks, whether getting insurance or passing on that risk to somebody else or whatever. But we're taught to think very forward into the future, whereas 5 years, 10 years ahead. And we can definitely use those skills to develop our entrepreneurial side of things.
I think a lot of people also that become entrepreneurs sort of start consultants. So it's like doing the same kind of work traditionally we do, but now they have their own consultants firm. Also, that's the other route, like I know some people have gone. Yeah.
So I found also like something that you can do now. I don't know what the campus looks like for you guys, but personally, I did a lot of electives. So I found, I know there's a cost implication there, but it's free to get into lectures, I think, for everybody, like at the university. And I found that those gave a lot of context to things and opened up, my mind a little bit more. So you'll find that, at UCT, they did give us a lot of courses that were a little bit more broad. So literally on evidence-based management, which is you literally questioning every single thing. Like, how do you know you're here? How do you know all of these things? So those are the type of things where, if you expose yourself to, I guess in this context, so it doesn't always have to be about the entrepreneur, but any other skill that you feel is lacking in the qualification, you can literally just go attend a psychology class if you feel that will open up your
marketing.
You'll never have this opportunity again where you can literally just get knowledge for free, in quotes, just I guess, but you can always just attend those entrepreneurial type classes that the other courses have. Free time, if you have free time.
Yeah, awesome. I think we've exhausted everything in the chat for now. Let me know if I've missed anything, but I think we can move on to our next question. But guys, please put in more questions in, or we're getting another one from Moses. Do you need to be smart, super genius to pass exams? I'm asking this because there's some myths about the professional exams. How can you advise us on this area so that we can have a lot more people, I guess, who are willing to join the profession?
Look, I think the fact that you're studying actuarial science or maths and stats, you've already proven that you're smart. You're smart already. So you don't, and then for these exams, you don't need to be super, super smart. I think it's just a matter of just being life smart in some cases. Like, yeah, look, obviously you're gonna need to study and you're going to need to understand the things that you're studying, but it's also important how you're going to go about it. I mean, like Natsai spoke about bouncing off ideas. When I did my fellowship, like literally every morning, a friend and I would get together and would just discuss stuff like, okay, this is what we read. And I learned a lot from just him telling me what he knows. And he says also from me telling him what I know. So you don't have to be super smart. You just need to know how to maximize things and yeah.
Yeah. I would add, there's definitely a level of diligence. Actuarial science, when I was studying, it's not those exams where or subjects where, you miss your lectures and 2 days before the exam, you cram and show up. Actuarial science is not about that. It's one of those, for me, my experience, you have to be diligent, when you study, when a topic is discussed in class, go and do the work. Pre-read where there's pre-reading, attend the lecture, ask questions. After the lecture, reread, understand what was being discussed. Go through sort of all the material that you've been told by your lecturer to do. Go through your tutorials, do past exam questions. You have to be consistently on the ball before the test. It's not like nothing, do nothing and cram 2 days before and rock up. It's not like, I'm sure around the campus, some subjects where you can just like read the day before. Actual science, you have to be very consistent. Yeah, so there's a very higher level of, for me, diligence on it. So in terms of like having a life, yes, you still need to have a life, you still need to have balance, but you need to definitely allocate enough time to study. I think even on the Actuarial Society of South Africa, ASA, there's even sometimes minimum hours to prepare for certain exams, and some of them is like 200 hours or 300 hours, 400 hours. And it's I guess right now as your students, you are going to be studying. I'm just even thinking when you start working and you're not giving it enough time, and yet 8 hours of your day you're working. So there's a lot more attention required to, actually force yourself to sit down and actually work through it.
So I feel I had a bit of a different journey, but I guess
it's okay.
It speaks to, I think the key theme though is like self-awareness. So knowing what type of person you are, because I'll be honest, I know in theory, you should do what Karen is saying, and you should prep in advance if you really want to maximize on your, but I mean, there's
you
some
were super
among us.
smart, Natai. You didn't need to study.
Like we're all super smart, but I feel like you need to be self-aware. I guess it speaks to the life skills that Kudzi has said. You need to be self-aware to say, okay, I'm not going to be, pre-reading before as much as I should be, because that's where, for those that have that ability, that's what you need to do to maximize. Then you need to, because I used to find that it was easier for me to have people that, we would discuss things. It just makes it quicker and easier. So you need to decide, am I a person who can literally sit? Because some people don't like, studying as a group. Because it's
no, 100%. Yeah.
I don't 100%. Mind, like, if you feel like, okay, pre-reading is not for me, a quick chat with a friend, because if you actually think about it, all these concepts, especially a whole lecture, can be summarized into like, okay,
this is the concept.
This is the concept. This is what you need to know. This is what you need to learn. And then you go and do your thinking and do whatever. It's in the back of your mind. You definitely cannot just do nothing. That doesn't work.
Yes, you can't do nothing. I think the strategy around you go about, at least you're doing something. And those there are different ways of doing it. But not to do anything and just, not engage with material is
Actuarial science, actually, I think the more you are, the longer you are on a journey, you're actually going to see it's not about being super smart. Everybody who starts this is smart. You are super smart, but being super smart is not enough. You have to be life smart. Yeah.
And it just makes your journey easier even.
Yeah.
Because it'll be quicker.
Cool. Let's move on to the next question. I love the many questions that are coming in. Please keep them coming. From Nedi, I hope I'm saying your name right. To what level of the exams does one start if he or she has actuarial data science master's degree?
Look, so it depends what subjects you're doing, and also if the university is credited. So usually if your university is credited either with ASA or the institute, they have a set of subjects from your degree that they will be like, okay, if you have this certain mark there on these subjects, then you get like an exemptions from it. So, it's not a straight answer, because like, for example, a person can, for example, go through an actuarial science degree, but still just have no exemption or 2 exemptions or 7 exemptions. So it just depends on whether you are accredited, and if there are some exemption subjects from your degree with whichever ASA, the institute, or whatever actuarial body. And if there isn't, then you start from writing the first actuarial board exam. Yeah.
Yeah. I have nothing else to add to that, Natsa?
No, nothing to add.
Okay, cool. I think it was a clear one. Thanks, Kuzi.
Mm.
Next question. Do you guys have any regrets in choosing this career? I mean, I'll start. I love my job. Maybe love it too much. It's all about, for me, problem solving. Actual science for me is all about problem solving. Of course, solving financial problems in a way. I love that it was challenging. I love that it's, to be honest, I guess gives me a comfortable life. And there are always new problems to solve every day. And I love that it gives me opportunities to work anywhere. Especially when you're qualified, I guess there's a lot of opportunities, at least in our market, around where to work. I get messages every day about new roles, and I'm like, guys, I just moved here in September. Can't you see? I'm still happy here. But I enjoy what I do. And yes, there's a lot. I suppose the other side is maybe there's a lot more. There are times when it's really busy, when we have, say, regulatory submissions that we have to do to our regulator. So there are times when things are really busy, and there the balance comes in. Like any other job, work can be busy, and it's just important to manage, you know, work, life, and study. But from my end, I do not regret it at all. I suppose just to add as well, I know many people have, I think I was very fortunate, and maybe most of South African guys who study in South Africa are very, very fortunate. At University of Wits, we get 12 exemptions. Of the 15 we were talking about, we get 12 exemptions at varsity. So already we're like, for myself, I was very, guess blessed or privileged. I came out with 12 out of 12 of them. So I only had one big main exam to work on. Yes, it took me time. I mean, it took me 4 sittings to get it right, the General Insurance Fellowship, but it's not compared to writing. As I was doing my test and my in my university in first year, second year, third year, fourth year, I was getting those exemptions as I was going, which is very different from like starting all the exams when you're working. But it's not impossible. I know people have started from exam number 1 and were fully qualified. I remember even one of my managers at my first employer, one lady we did med stats, and she was 36 years old and switched to actuarial science. And over a period of 10 years, it can take you longer or shorter than that. She wrote through the American society, and she qualified as an actuary. So you can always start anytime. I think if you're diligent and you love it, and especially if you're working in the area, then what you're studying is very much linked to what you are working on. Then you can transfer that knowledge to your studies. So from my end, no regrets.
Do you see the value of pre-reading? Karen came out with 12, I came out with 5. So I guess
Yes, that's I.
so I guess maybe the pre-reading helped. My one regret is I don't regret the profession, joining the profession as a whole, but I think what I regretted, and I've since found a work around it, is I just felt like I would have preferred to be in something that has more of a social impact. So I think, money aside, I probably would have ended up as a psychologist or something just, less technical, even though I really enjoy what I do, or teaching or something. But I found a workaround, which is just, you can teach on the side. You can still do all of that on the side. I think that's the one regret, that our profession does not have as direct a social impact as medicine or something like that. But other than that, I don't have any regrets.
Yeah. Kuzi, do you have any regrets in choosing this career?
Do you guys want a list? I'm kidding. Look, I have some moments. I think I'm like Natai. I don't like, I have a very technical brain and I can figure things out and I can work things out, but I don't like to just be technical. So luckily I have found that in the industry, there's like different kinds of roles and different ways you can work. And I also like to see the impact of my work. So if I'm just sitting there and I'm like, the reserve is 5, whatever, and okay, it's fine. then I don't know how does that impact the person on the street. I like to know if I'm making things better. But like Natai says, there's workarounds, so now you do that in your personal space. But yeah, honestly, I love how, this career has taught me to think. It's like a way of thinking that is really different, which can be frustrating when you're talking to other people. But it's I think we are taught a very different and amazing way of thinking and of solving problems. And I think it just opens doors just everywhere, without even for people. I know people who didn't even qualify to be actuaries. I know some people. I'll give an example. My husband, for example, he studied actuarial science. Guy was not about the exemption life and pre-reading. He did not pre-read, Karen. And when he came out of university, he actually never joined any actuarial body. And he went and he worked. Now he's a trader. He does trading, he does treasury stuff, investments, that kind of things. And just because he studied actuarial science, there was just so much value placed on him. And just because he studied actuarial science, people come to him for solutions and stuff. So even if you don't progress with exams, that kind of thinking that you would have learned from, and I think that comes a lot with even like mathematical or engineering kinds of degrees. I think you just taught it different kinds of thinking. So at some points during the journey, when the exams are hard and you've written something and you think you gave it your best and then the results came and you didn't pass, then sometimes you're like, oh my goodness, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But at the end, after qualifying, honestly, I don't have regrets. I think I love that I went through this journey. And I think as a person, the kind of development that, I think I'm more diligent. I don't know. I think it's just improved me generally as a person. I think it builds your character. No regrets.
And I find that sometimes when people have regrets, I think that's why we drove home the point of managing expectations. A lot of times people put their life on hold and want to, when I qualify, I'm going to buy this big house and this big car and this big, and when it doesn't happen, you regret. Because you're like, listen, if I knew,
I would
lie to me.
But also there's the guys in life happens, and just be aware that it's okay to change your mind at any point in life. There's nothing that is set in stone. So if you have written something and now you've written it 13 times and it's just not happening, it's okay to look at your options and do other things. And just because you come from that kind of actuarial background, doors open.
Yeah. Cool. I'm seeing we have about 17 minutes left. So we've got 3 more questions in the chat. Let's see how far we get through them. After varsity, there's an issue of finding a job. And once you find it, there's an issue of proving your competence. What best advice would you give to someone who would want to continue writing exams and continue focusing on their job too, especially if someone has found a job in a non-actuarial field?
I think one of the that I would say is probably for somebody like that, if you feel like it's stressful, give yourself a bit more time. So people if you've got good study support, hey, you can knock 3 subjects in a sitting and do that. But like if you give yourself and pace yourself and give yourself that time, then it's definitely possible. Because I mean, this is more of a philosophical discussion, but we have more time than we think we have in a day, and it's all about finding ways to really manage your time the most. I remember
exactly.
Started working. My first job was not that supportive, but guess what I would do? I used to take taxis at the time. I would sit in the front of the taxi, read a page. And if you think about it, if you do that every day, by the end of the year, you've read 365 pages and you're literally, you don't need to sit and say, okay, because if you give yourself an hour to study, you're going to take up that hour and still read that 1 page. But if you say, you know what, I'm sitting in this taxi or in this whatever mode of transport you're using, I'm going to quickly study. you can definitely do a lot more if you if you have a bit more focus, I guess, and prioritize everything in your life and say, okay, I'm going to put it into 30 minutes before work is literally, especially if you're getting the support that you need to study, 30 minutes before work is all you need to literally say, okay, I'm going to sit and I'm going to make sure that I understand, 2 pages or 3 pages. And if you do that every day diligently, to steal Karen's word, if you're diligent in doing by the end of the year, you can actually achieve more. I remember when I had my study leave, I wouldn't really actually spend the whole day studying. I'd do an hour or 2, and then, okay,
I
let me
did
do my
4.
grocery. Let me
Half day study leave. Yeah.
half day study leave. Whereas if you know that this is an issue that I have, you can prioritize your time to be able, just, become more of a multitasker. While you're cooking, a page.
I agree with you there. I mean, I think for me, it hinges a lot upon planning. I know a lot of, whilst you're working, you wouldn't want to be feeling guilty that you're not studying. And when you're studying, you don't want to feel guilty that you're working. But if you set up time to say, I'm going to study an hour before, 2 hours before, or as Natai was saying, how many pages before, then if this is time to work, then you're your whole self, you are present at work to prove your competency. You're delivering your tasks on time, you're communicating well, you're listening in the meetings, you're doing all the work that you're supposed to do. And I think even also around work, sometimes if you see that it's a piece of work that takes a longer time, the key thing is about communicating with your managers, that this is actually going to take a little bit longer, or just to actually chat about around work so that you get enough time to show that you are delivering. But I think as long as you set up, I always say, to our other guys when I'm mentoring and stuff, that the study leave time is never enough to go through everything. So you actually need to dedicate. Am I actually going to study every day during the week? If that doesn't work for you, then you're studying over the weekends, but you still need to, of course, make time for all your other chores and grocery shopping or whatever it is, or family or church. So you do need to set up time to actually study. And when that time comes, be diligent enough and be true to yourself to actually do what you wanted to do in that time, so that when you're at work, you don't feel like, oh, it's 2 p.m. I don't have any work, but let me squeeze in and to actually cheat your employer and do your own things. I think it's important to, if you want to achieve it both, you need to manage how you're going to spend your 24 hours in a day.
And I think even on the, sorry.
Okay. Now, I was saying, and sometimes it's okay to understand, like, life just has so many balls.
Yes.
So firstly, if you're coming from university, I would recommend to first try, if this is what you think you want to do, to first try to go work in a place that does traditionally actuarial stuff where you can get support. But that might not always be possible. So if you get to work in a non-actuarial field, if possible, do keep contacting friends in people that work in the actuarial field. Then that's where those things like those conversations and those discussions will come in handy. So know how to maximize your time. And what I saw worked for me when I was in an environment that I worked in weird places that didn't support my actuarial studies, for example. I tried to maximize my time by the kind of study material I looked at. Like I don't really like sitting and reading. So I'd look at videos, like some study material from afar, they've got from the institute, they've got videos, and sometimes there's word things. So if I'm in a combi, like going somewhere, or if I'm even sleeping, I could like sleep, but with, like just hearing the voice notes. And I know it's going somewhere, the back of my mind, I'll think about it. So just really try and maximize your time and budget your time. Yeah.
And I think also on the topic of trying to prove yourself, I feel like as previously marginalized people, we have to go into a workspace and prove yourself, when actually, I mean, that's one thing I wish I had known, that in your first task, unless you're in a toxic work environment, your first when you go in, your aim is to learn as much as possible.
Yes.
Because you've proved yourself, you have a degree, you have whatever you have, you don't need to actively try and prove yourself. You just need to do your work and learn as much as possible, because then you will add value later on, as opposed to just being, you know, the doer. Okay, you do this, you do that, do it diligently, and you've proved yourself.
Yeah.
You're actually cheating yourself if you don't make time in your job to actually learn a bit more than just the tasks that are being given to you. But obviously, not every environment is not toxic, and you know, not every environment allows you to have that. But where it does, you should try and get that.
Yeah, I would even add, someone did mention, when we always talk about balance, it doesn't mean every day it's always going to be 2 hours study, 8 hours work, you know, 1 hour cooking, whatever. So balance, I suppose, is to say in the long run, on average, that you would have study time, you would have time to work. There is going to be times when it's busy at work and you actually don't have time to study, or there's something that happens in life that requires your attention, maybe in your family. And all I'm just saying is, hopefully over time, that say it's a whole week that you're busy dealing with this, that in the next few days that you can give a little bit more focus on your studies, but hopefully that it's enough that when it comes to exams that you're ready. Okay, cool. I think let's move on to the next question from Bashir. For those who have a degree in other fields, say maths, how long do they take to be an actuary? How many papers do they write? Since you said that in South Africa it is almost 15 papers. So I can take an attempt on this one. So to be an actuary is a qualified person. You need to have done all the exams. So it will take you as long as it will to do all the exams. How many papers would they need to write? They'll need to write those 15 papers, whether it's in the UK 15 papers or the 15 papers in South Africa. I think in the America Society, I think it's about 10 or 11, but I think there is a number of exams to qualify for a certain, in a certain country that you want to be affiliated with.
Yeah, I mean, all I can add is that at the very least, it'll take you, if you have 0 exemptions, maybe let's say 15 divided by 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So 5 sections at the very least, because I mean, you're not really going to write more than 3. But other than that, I found, especially on my journey, I qualified before some people that had 15 exemptions. I'm being extra.
Yeah.
You know, and some people that had 0 qualified before me. It means essentially, if you can manage your time well, you could literally in 3 years be done. Do you know what I mean? In 4 years be done. It's not necessarily that, okay, just because I'm starting with 0, I'm going to take 15 years. Some people get the right things in place, get that help, read with an open mind, do all of the things that you're supposed to do to improve your journey, and you will be done in no time. So, I personally am of the belief that there's very little correlation between, how many exemptions you have, or because that's the only thing that differentiates you between someone who has an actuarial degree and someone who doesn't. And that does not really, obviously it's much
scheme.
In the bigger scheme of things, that should not be a deterrent. If you just do what you do, you can quickly finish.
Yep, agree.
Cool. Next question. You talked of us knowing whether a particular company is interested in actuary exams or not for professional development. I want to understand how do we know that they're interested in actuary exams, etc.
Okay. So I understand, like, now the profession in Malawi is still developing, but usually in, for example, insurance companies, and if they are consultants with like an actuarial branch, say, I'm not sure what consultants are in Malawi, but for example, usually a traditionally insurance company, they would most of them would have like an actuarial support. And it's because actuarial exams are very different. Working in another environment, that was my experience, because I've worked in non-actuarial places. So for example, if you work at, say, Deloitte or whatever other actuarial place, you would get, say, 20 days of study leave for one of, say, for life fellowship, 25 or 20 for fellowship exam. I remember the first time working at this other company that's non-actuarial and telling them, listen, I have my CA1 exam and I'm going to need 20 days study leave just for this session, just for that exam. And then after that, I'm going to write my life, whatever exam, and I'm going to need another 20 days. So that's 40 days study leave in a year, on top of the other 20 days annual leave you're going to give me. And you can imagine the shock and the horror on this person's face. It's like, what? You know, whereas in an actuarial environment, that is just really normal. So I know the industry is still developing. I don't know to what extent you have. One thing I found helpful when I was at University of Pretoria, and maybe that's something you guys can think of doing, is that we had people that work in other companies come talk to us. So I don't know if you guys would think of hosting like actuarial fairs or career fairs or something, and you actually have people in Malawi that are in the Malawian industry coming to talk to students. I found that very helpful. So you kind of like gauge from what they're saying, like what these kind of places are. So that is something that might be,
And that's where expectations get managed as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you see them showing up and they're not in a G-Wagon, and then you know.
Yes.
Yeah. I would even add, I suppose, when you're doing that interview to join a company, those are questions to ask. You know, if maybe you're going to 3 companies and you can, those are questions to ask. Is there any support for actuarial exams? But I know it's very difficult probably to negotiate for more days if no one in the industry is doing that. But for companies that are offering that, then they can attract more people. For us in South Africa, it's definitely one of the things we use to compare companies and to choose where to go. But I'm hoping, you know, that the industry in Malawi takes this up and sees the value that actuaries can bring to their businesses and start offering such benefits.
And in the unfortunate case that you only have that option that you have for a job, and that job does not offer that support, go in there, do your best, gain as much knowledge as you can, be aware of what skills are required, and then move. Just make sure you're not just going to work and coming out. Just make sure you learn as much as possible. See what skills are required in the market and make sure you develop those skills. And, you know, the qualifying journey becomes a lifelong journey, really.
Yeah.
You know? So
100%.
The end goal to say, oh, I qualified and as an actuary, and then life begins, you know.
Yeah, life happens. Regardless of whether or not you're writing exam, life happens. People take, you know, different routes to the journey. I mean, like I mentioned, I got married, I had my 2 babies, and I was still writing exams, and I worked at a non-actuarial place at some point, places that didn't have that kind of support. And then, you know, then I moved, and once I moved to places that had support, it was like, you know, much faster and yeah, it helped. But I already had skills that I'd gotten in these other places.
Yeah. Guys, I'm conscious that we have 2 minutes left. I want to say maybe we can respond to the remaining questions via email, and maybe our facilitator can share with the students on the remaining questions. I just want us to give, you know, 30 seconds or 1 minute of last words. Maybe we can start with Kuzai and Natsai, then I'll end off on what, any last thoughts you want to share with the guys. But thank you guys for the questions. I think we'll respond via email and can be shared.
Okay. Look, from me, I think be kind to yourself. Be very kind to yourself. Life happens. Try the best that you can, but also understanding that sometimes things don't go your way. This actuarial journey will humble you in some cases, because you came from somewhere being the smartest person you knew, and then, you know, once you start writing board exams, a lot of people, even the smartest people in the room, have failed this. So be kind to yourself. And I think this is a good thing that you guys have done. Please try to have more of these interactive sessions. I think you will learn more, and also try to talk to people that are currently in Malawi in the industry. I think that'll be valuable. Yeah.
I guess from my end, I guess it's driving the point home, but be more well-rounded to the best of your abilities. Just, be a more well-rounded individual, make every effort to, focus on anything, like all other things except for this journey. Like there's more to life than just writing exams, passing. And also, I feel like even with the studying, you need to learn to study smart, because I mean, for you to be able to make time for other things, you need to have the right techniques in order to be able to do everything else, because if you're just reading and reading and reading, that's how it ends up taking, 8 hours of the day for you to absorb information, and also, pay attention to networks, put yourself out there, be in people's inboxes on LinkedIn, you might not get responded to all the time. Someone is going to respond, and that someone is going to probably make a difference in your life. And even when you are done, or even as you are now, always aim to have an impact on those that are before you. So if you're in fourth, help the first years, don't be a hoarder of information. If there's something that you felt like ish you had known when you started your first year journey, tell them now. This is, avail yourself to be able to help them with that first year material, because just to make their life easier. Because the aim is, especially since it's a growing profession, the aim is to make sure that those that come after us have less of a struggle than, we do. We all have certain aspects of our lives that we feel like, okay, I personally feel like Black females have it tough in the workplace, and I make it an aim to make sure that if there's a Black female who needs my help, I'm not always going to be available, but I try. You do the same. If you feel like white males are what you resonate with, try and help them as much as possible to make sure that, whatever you struggle with, they don't struggle with as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, and don't forget to have fun, because you really need to. This life is short. Saying it's long. Don't forget to have whatever you're doing, even if you have one exam left, but you're like, no, you know what? I want to go be a dancer. Go do it. Do what you need to do. Happy.
Yeah. Cool. My last 2 cents, I want to really echo what Natsai was just saying around giving back. I think there was a time when we were students, and now we are, we're working in our workplaces. We are also giving back in our profession. We are doing the session. I know myself, I part-time lecture and lead some of the actuarial subjects in South Africa, but it's important to realize that you're students now, but one day you're going to be managers. One day you're going to be the ones hiring new students, and be aware that you needed study leave. It might not have happened for you, but just be aware of how can you make that better for the next person. Because I can assure you, I think the actuarial science degree for me is one of the most valuable degrees. We can work anywhere in the world, pharmaceuticals, in the food industry, wherever. Our way of thinking and managing risk and brainstorming is just amazing. So yeah, I think definitely have the balance. Remember to network with your people, work together with people, because those are the same people you're going to work with in the future. And yeah, all the best. Can't wait to see what Malawi is going to do in the future. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. This was really amazing. I've learned quite a lot, and I'm sure even the students and everyone who's in attendance, they have learned a lot about being an actuary. And one thing I can say, we ought to be life smart. That was really great. We'll take note of that. Yeah, thank you so much. So for those who still have questions, especially those at University of Malawi, feel free to email me. I think the students know the email address. So otherwise, it was a great moment. Thank you all for attending. Hopefully in the near future, when you're hosting events, part of the attendees will actually be the actuaries that will be telling us their journey, that, oh, we once met Natsai and met Kudzi, and Karen told me about this, and I feel like 10 years was so long, but here I am, an actuary. So hopefully we would have our students as well be talking to us as actuaries. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys, and good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.